So I want to thank you very much for inviting me to be here. We're going to talk about the Innovators DNA. Quick question, how many of you saw me yesterday afternoon? Just curious. And you're back. You either really want some more stress in your life, or you want to feel a little bit more uncomfortable, didn't get enough uncomfort yesterday. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, you have to ask them later. We're going to talk about the Innovators DNA. I start all my presentations the same way. I want to thank you for being here. You had a choice. You could be back in your room taking a nap. You could be out gambling. You could be on the golf course. You've chosen to be here, and I want to honor that. I want to gracefully say thank you. And then also, I want to thank you for your mental engagement. More than anything else, I hope that you will mentally engage and think about what we're going to talk about this morning. I want to make an agreement with you and hope you'll make the same agreement with me. In this presenter attendees agreement, I believe in the law of motion. If at any time this presentation veers in a direction that doesn't meet your needs, you get bored, get a phone call, get a text, need to stand up, or just tired of this, you have the right to move. You do not need to stay in here if this isn't working for you. Get up and go do something that is. You are not here for me, I am here for you. Let's get that straight right off the bat. I am here for you and hoping to design and facilitate a learning experience for you about innovation. Bathrooms, you know where they are by now, I hope. I know where they are too, in case you see me running out, you know what's going on. In this presenter attendee agreement, please put your mobile devices on vibrate. Now I'm going to come down to the floor because I want to see the whites of your eyes. In this presenter attendee agreement, you may social share anything that I share with you. Marcy has a slide deck. You can get the slide deck from her. You can take the slides later and make them yours. I'm okay with that. If you're going to be using Twitter during this presentation, I'm going to ask you to please use the golden rule of Twitter. Read this. If that only really happened in today's world, right? And I'm going to also ask you to tweet something good from this presentation before you tweet anything bad. The hashtag is hashtag Elevate 2019. Hashtag Elevate 2019. If you tweet something bad, I'll just go on Twitter later and deny that it ever happened. So in this presenter attendee agreement, let's make understanding innovation, what the DNA of innovation is all about. And also, I'm going to declare that this is a safe space. This is a place to disagree, to push, to ponder, to pull, to throw it on the wall, to say, I just don't agree with you, Jeff. It's a safe place you can do that. And I'm okay with that. And finally, I'm going to give you a free pass. I know from my own experience that your retention and your learning of this experience is directly related to how active you are in this presentation. So I'm going to ask you to be mentally active. If I ask you to do something and you don't want to do it, you get a free pass. You can use this free pass as frequently and as often as you want. You just tell your neighbors that, I'm going to use my free pass here, I'm just going to observe, and I'm okay with that. So there's my presenter attendee agreement. If it works for you, thumbs up. Doesn't work, thumbs down. Don't care, thumbs sideways. Come on, so I can pull your thumbs off your phones. Thank you. Here's a little bit about me. There's 3 of my dogs. One of them I just had to put down, unfortunately, and he was with me 16 years. The one that's sitting on the arm, sitting up, Rowan. Rowan had been with us since 6 months of age. And Rowan was my spouse's therapy dog. And not originally when we got Rowan, but that's what Rowan became. Now we're getting another one right now. We're waiting on Blackie to come our way. But I love dogs, except for when I was a kid, I was afraid of dogs. But I wanted to be a veterinarian. Now figure that out. I always had dogs from the Cocker Spaniel Rescue in the Dallas-Fort Worth area because I love cockers. Here's some of the companies I've worked for over the years. I'm an educator by trade. My post-baccalaureate works in the study of andragogy, but you have no idea what it means unless you were in my session yesterday. Andragogy is the study of how the human adult brain learns. Pedagogy is the study of the art and science of teaching children. Notice the difference? Teaching versus learning. There's things in pedagogy that work, there's things in andragogy that work. About 15 years ago, I had to unlearn everything I learned in college about andragogy because it was wrong. One of the most difficult challenges I think we have in today's world is unlearning. I'd say there's 3 things that you need to do to be successful in the future: learning, unlearning, and relearning. And it is so hard to fight the unlearning model because we don't want to let go of what we were taught or what we believe. And I had good friends. I struggled for 2 years letting go of what I had learned in college that was scientifically wrong. It was now proven that it was wrong. It was all based on myth. And a good friend of mine said, "You're a learner. You love learning. Why can't you let this go and learn something new? I said, yeah, right. What's wrong with me? But it's just one of those things. So as we go through this, see if there's any unlearning you may need to do. It's your turn. I'd like for you to turn to your neighbor on your right or your left and ask them the following question. If you could have any superpower, what would it be? If you have any superpower, what would it be? Turn your neighbor on your right or your left and talk about this in 2s or 3s. Okay, I'm looking for a couple volunteers. I have some mic runners. Looking for a couple volunteers who'd be willing to share with us what your superpower you want to be, or the person you talk to, what their superpower is. Looking for a couple volunteers? Raise your hand for us so we can come running to you with the mic so we can all hear what you have to say. Okay, we have one up here. We have one right here too. If you want to head this way. Go ahead. We'll start with him and then we'll come this way. Tell us your name.
Jeff Gilling.
Hey, nice name, Jeff.
So we had two, I'll share both.
Okay.
Mitch wanted to be invisible, and then I said...
Ignore him for the rest of the conference.
Exactly. And then I wanted to be telepathic, but we both agreed that in both cases we wanted to be able to turn that off.
Oh, okay.
So don't want it full time.
Okay, thank you. Let's go over here. Tell them your name.
My name is Kara Clower, and I would want to be able to freeze time.
Oh.
And then be able to unfreeze it, of course.
Unfreeze it, okay. Interesting, all right. There was another hand right here.
Hi, my name's Bethany Smith. Sorry, fighting a cold. I want the ability to open people's minds.
Oh, wow. Do you want to be able to close them too?
No. I want the ability to be able to help people to open their minds to different thought.
Thank you, okay. Doug right here has one.
Yeah, so I'm
And
Doug
there's one over here too. Hey Doug, let's wait for the mic for
Wait
you.
for the mic?
Yes, go ahead please. And we'll get to hear in just a second. Go ahead.
Excellent. I'm Doug Parker, and my friend Tina wants to be able to fly. And we talked about, I first said I wanted to be able to fly, but I don't. I want to be able to teletransport because I just want to be there. And Tina wants to fly because it's about the experience. And for me, it's about getting there to have the experience. And then Marcy said that she wants to be able to read minds.
Ooh.
I said, you don't want to read my mind. It's
Okay, one more, yes.
Hi, my name's Sarah Davies. I wanted the ability to speak any language, understand and speak any language, because I feel like you gain a lot more when you're working with people if you're able to communicate in their native tongue.
Okay, Google Translate right here in real life, all right. So mine is I want to be able to teleport myself anywhere with my luggage. Because I just stopped traveling. I used to travel about 120,000 miles a year. And yeah, it sounds like it's great, but it's not. Coming to a city, fly right back out of the city, and being in several cities within a week's time gets very old very quickly. Everybody's like, but you're all over the place. You get to go to some great cities. I'm like, yeah, but I don't get to spend any time there. And plus, I'm there by myself. I'm there for a company or consulting, and I said, I got to pare this back some. I've just got to do this because I need my life to be more transformational and meaningful, and I want to be able to travel with my family from time to time. And I want to be able to stay somewhere and really experience the culture or what that city has to offer. And I want to be able to delve into it, get into it, and learn from it, and move on. So, here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the traits of today's business innovators. The traits of today's business innovators. We're going to list 4 behaviors to consider, 4 things that you can do on a daily basis. If you practice these behaviors, you will become more innovative. And then we're also going to look at idea networks for diversity and innovation. What in the world is an idea network? So those are my 3 learner outcomes. By the end of this presentation, I hope you're able to do one of these on your own. So there's the 3 of them. Take a look at them. Which one of these 3 interests you the most? and why? Would you turn to your neighbor on your right or your left and tell them which one of these three interests you the most and why? You do that now. Okay, let's talk about this as a group. How many of you, number one, interest you? Raise your hands for me. How many of you, number one, interest you? Raise your hands for me. Okay, how many of you, number two, interest you? Raise your hands for me. Of course. Of course. Tell me the quick tips, Jeff. How many of you, number three, interest you? Okay, how many of you are willing to say more than one of these interests you? Raise your hands. Any braver souls in the room willing to say none of this interests me? Raise your hand. I'd excuse you and say, go do something that interests you. So why in the world would this presentation be important to you? What's the magic carrot? What's in it for you? Here's where I'm getting this information. I want you to know my sources. Clay Christensen and his team have really delved into innovation and actually have a book called The Innovators Dna. And it's some fascinating information, very practical application that is very transformative. So why would this be important to you? What's in it for you? What's the magic carrot? Why this information, Jeff? Well, you don't want your business life to become like this, stale and commoditized. It's the last thing you want your customers to say to you. What you do want is a fresh, unique experience that pulls you in, unless you're allergic to strawberries. So this is all about moving from transactional to transformational experiences. You heard Marcy say that one of the things that I take great pride in, great joy in, is trying to design, even in a situation like this, a learning experience and facilitating an experience for you where you walk away with something that's practical, relevant, but transformational, that shifts the way you think. Because if I can get you to shift your thinking, if I can get you thinking, number one, in a presentation, I've done my job. So, who are some great innovators? Let's just let the room go silent for just a few seconds. Think for a second. Don't say anything out loud. Just think. Who are some great innovators? Turn to your neighbor on your right or your left. Talk to each other. Who are some great innovators that you know of? Talk to some people. Okay, let's talk about this. But before I do that, I want to take off my hat as your facilitator right now, and I want to deconstruct what I've done with you this morning. In the past 10 minutes or so, I've done something with you very intentionally. And if you happen to know me at all, you know that everything I'm doing and saying, there's an intention behind it, and there's a reason why I'm doing it, because I study the brain. And one of my partners is at the University of Texas at Dallas, the Center for Brain Health, the Brain Performance Institute, about how do we improve our brains? Because here's what's going to happen. Our kids are going to live into the hundreds, 110, 120, 130. We can replace everything in your body but your brain. And what's the one thing that we can make that makes you who you are? The one thing that makes you who you are is your brain. You are everything about your brain. I said this yesterday in the presentation. Could you tell me your name right here? Tess. If Tess and I could exchange brains, and Tess had my brain and I had Tess's brain, would I be Tess or would I be Jeff? I'd be Tess. And the one thing we don't want to have happen is we don't want our kids to grow older and have poor brains, unhealthy brains. But there's things that we're doing on a regular day-to-day basis that are creating early dementia and early Alzheimer's. Doug and I were talking about this when we were talking about the table earlier. I happened to move a college friend of mine in. We went to the same college together many, many years ago. And I invited him to my house for a vacation, and he ended up staying. And he has vascular dementia, which I didn't know at the time. I knew it sounded a little odd on the phone, but I thought he just needed to get away from his family. And what I do know is that the more we practice, even some of these things that I'm going to give you today about innovation, the more you practice them, the healthier your brain gets. Because your brain starts to decay at age 41. So we just found out in the room who's 41 or older. And I have intentionally set this presentation up to try to get you to have an open mind and also to ease you into thinking. So what did I do first? Let me take yesterday for example, because I didn't do it this morning. I often do it, but yesterday, those of you that were in my presentation, what was the very first thing I did? Do you remember the very first thing I did with the presentation yesterday I did? Anybody remember? I stood at the doorway and I greeted you. I tried my best to get around the room as much as I could and shake everybody's hands. To let you know I'm human like you are, and I'm an informal presenter. I'm not a very formal presenter. I'm very informal because this is about you. And also to try to read what I could, as quickly about you as I could, ask a couple of questions or move on. So I started that. This morning, what was the next thing I did? What did I do after I did that? Well, when I got up on stage, I thanked you. And what did I thank you for? Being here and for participating, for your mental engagement. After that, what did I do? Do you remember? I came off the stage to be one of you because one of the things about speaking and presenting is whenever you're on a stage and you're up above somebody else, you automatically are sending a subconscious message that you're more important than they are. And I happen to know that that becomes a barrier to learning. That's why I will come down as much as possible. I will often sit on a stool or something on the floor just so I can be somewhat eye level with you. After that, what did I do? I did a presenter-attendee agreement, right? And I gave you permission to do what? Check out! I gave you permission to play on your phones. I gave you permission to be on your computers. I gave you permission to take care of yourself. And nobody's left the room yet. Interesting, isn't that? Just acknowledging, moving on. After that, what did I do? I gave you 3 learner outcomes, right? I had you talking about my content before I ever gave you a piece of it. It's called priming the brain. If I can get you talking about what I'm going to talk about and to choose one of these things that's more important to you, I've already got your brain. I happen to know that I just baited you. Now, not in a negative way, but to invite you in. Now, isn't that interesting? Great innovators are really good at this. After that, I talked about the why before the what. We haven't even got to the what. I'm deconstructing for you, but I started talking about the purpose of this and why this would be important to you. Here's what I know about your brain. We don't operate up here very much in our brain, the prefrontal cortex, the frontal lobes. We operate a lot back in here, the amygdala, where the emotional center, the limbic system of our brain is. Some of us thrive on this emotional part. You know those people. Those people who you can push their buttons like this and watch them, and the Tasmanian devil comes out. You know those people. That's unhealthy in lots of ways, but it's also unhealthy for the brain. And the more I can get you operating up here, the healthier your brain can be. But here's the thing, your brain doesn't like to work. Your brain is built to avoid thinking. It's very true. So if you're sitting there going, well, this isn't working for me, you're following your brain. You're following the biology of your brain. So what I've tried to do is get this system back here, the limbic system of your brain, the amygdala, to let go of the body's resources so that this system up here can operate. Because you can't operate out of the two systems at the same time. You're either operating out of the executive functions of your brain, or you're operating out of the limbic system of your brain. It's one or the other. And when you're in one, you shut down the other. Well, if you're trying to get somebody to make a decision, you can use the emotions to get them to buy something on emotions, and a couple hours later they're going to go, what was that all about? Why did I do that? But if you get them up here and it makes logical sense to them, and then you can also connect with the emotions and it makes emotional sense to them, you've really got them. But if you can get them to shift their thinking and to think differently, you've got them. So that was just to let you know why I set up this presentation the way it is, and using neuroscience and cognitive psychology of how I'm doing all this. So let's move on. Who are some great innovators? I heard this one. How many of you had this one? Raise your hands. It's where we go almost immediately. Who else? Shout out some names of some great innovators. Yes? Reed, tell us more.
So, Reed, maybe not an innovator, started Netflix in 2000.
Okay, we're going to get you a mic so we can all hear. Started Netflix. Tell us your name, by the way.
My name is Chad Coldiron. I'm with the Zweig group. Thank you all for being here.
Sidebar.
So Reed Hastings had a radical idea in the early 2000s, going up against competition like Blockbuster and other movie store rentals. He had the chain Hastings Video and Gifts. I'm sure a lot of you frequented those. He went to a mail order.
Did he just say we were old?
Yes.
He did, didn't he? Go ahead, keep going.
He went to a mail order video system, and a lot of the reason that he did that was he saw the rise of YouTube and how powerful that had become as a digital online content. And I believe as of today, Netflix holds a daily average of about 15% of internet traffic worldwide.
Wow.
Which is something that I would believe would put you in the category as
Okay.
an innovator.
So, you know, what's interesting is, can't you imagine the board meeting at Blockbuster? Can't you imagine sitting around the table, somebody going, hey, this internet thing, don't you think we should be a little concerned about this instead of selling VHS tapes or renting them? Can't you hear the conversation going on? Oh, no, it'll never happen. Our customers are with us for life. They'll always be with us. They're not going to change. And where are they now? Just kind of an interesting sidebar there. Who else? Who else are some great innovators? So raise your hand, whoever just said that. He's coming with a mic, right here. Raise your hand again so he can see. There you go. And tell us what you said, I didn't quite hear.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. Tell us why.
Well, because he's transformed the space program overall and just has brought a lot of new ideas. And who else has managed to figure out how to launch a rocket and have the boosters land back on a ship and bring it back into the center? So
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that one. Who else? Who else are some other great innovators? I have a couple more in mind. Come on. Yes, just shout it out. Here she comes with a mic. Come on. She's going to run.
Jonathan Barilla, Nikola Tesla.
Tell us why.
He developed a modern electrical grid.
So imagine this. Imagine the board of a gas station sitting around. Imagine Exxon and Mobil sitting around talking about, well, you know, this electrical car thing, should we be worried about it? Well, how are we going to set up the electrical infrastructure for people to charge up their cars? Have you thought about that? Now, living in Dallas, Texas, and the neighborhood that I live in is very much like Austin, Texas. There are electrical charging stations all over the place in my neighborhood. Isn't that interesting? But it's not based on the gas station model. You can't take an old framework and try to thrust new ideas in it. If you have new innovations, you may need a new framework for thinking. You can't take the old gas station model and change it to electrical charging stations because it won't work. You have to come up with a new model. Just kind of a sidebar. So, Disney. Who all in the room had Disney? Curious? Anybody? Just a couple of you, okay? I threw in a couple females because we ironically go to all males. Maria Beasley created the first life raft in 1892. Wow. How come we don't know this name? Somebody very transformative saved lives with a life raft. Amazon. I must confess, I buy all my groceries through Amazon. I hate going to the grocery store. I don't want to go anymore. Unless I'm going to go to Central Market, which is an experience. Because then I want to sample. And I want to see people cooking things, and I want to be part of that. Zappos. Fess up. How many of you buy Zappos shoes? Fess up. Just mostly the women in the room. Sorry about that. Google. What I love about Google is they actually, when you're an employee at Google, you get so much time to spend on innovations or new ideas and experimenting. What I hope to see in the future is this: elevate her. Because I think that's a very innovative, unique, transformational experience that will transform your industry. I'm a firm believer that that is the right direction to go. So what traits do these famous innovators have? What are some of the traits these famous innovators have? Think about some of these innovators we talk about, and all the ones you've talked about. Turn to each other and talk about, what are some of their traits? Talk to each other about it. What are some of the traits they have? Okay, let's talk about this as a group. Mic runners, are you ready? Looking for a couple people to share with us. What are some traits they have? What are some of the traits innovators have? Looking for some people to share with us? Okay, right here, tell us your name.
Bill Baird. They were risk takers.
Risk takers.
And they had faith.
Faith in?
Say again?
They had faith in what?
That they could do this.
They were self-confident, weren't they? They had a lot of confidence in themselves. And they were risk takers. If one of you will come up right here, and then you can come up here later. Okay, tell us your name.
Delray Bennett.
Okay.
So we talked about that they were purpose-driven. They wanted to make the world a better place, to ignore all of the limits and boundaries. That they would ignore it all.
Wow. Ignore the limits and the boundaries. I'm very grateful that my parents, who are uneducated, do not have college degrees. I'm a West Virginia hillbilly. Now, I'm calling myself that. I didn't call anybody in the room a West Virginia hillbilly. Let's get that straight. I don't see it as derogatory. I've lived it. My grandmother birthed 27 kids. How would you like family reunions like that? Imagine being the son of the youngest female in that lineage and going back to West Virginia. And I was born in West Virginia in a small coal mining town that no longer exists. I love West Virginia. It's a beautiful state, but it's just really backwards for me. And my parents said at a very early age, if we don't get our kids out of West Virginia, they'll grow up being drug addicted, alcoholics, or they'll teach school or work in a coal mine. Well, I ended up teaching school anyway. But it's just very interesting. Their thought process is different. And my parents at a young age, I don't know how they figured this out, taught me to break rules. Any rule that was there, I needed to question it. Why was it there? And could I bend it? Could I find a way around it? Now, if it harmed somebody else, there was a reason that rule was there. But if it wasn't harmful, then why was it there? I don't know where they learned that, but that has served me well in my life. So thank you for bringing that up. No limits or boundaries. And as kids, we don't see that as a problem. But somewhere along the road, we grow up to be adults and we lose that childlike innocence where, well, let's try this. What's the worst that could happen? Let's experiment. Okay. Who else had their hands up? Right here, yes.
Curious.
Tell us more about that.
You're reaching for what's next. You're inquisitive about, I think they imagined what was possible.
I love that. Curiosity. Curiosity didn't kill the cat. Curiosity is what helped the cat keep going. I love curiosity. Where did we lose our curiosity about what if, why not? I'm not real sure. So, is there one more? Right here, she's coming.
I'm loud.
Wait, well, let's get the mic so we can all hear you. Here we go.
Not afraid to fail.
Yeah. Thank you. You want to tell us any more about that?
No, it's just I think failure is sometimes the best thing that can happen to us because we learn from it. And if we don't fail, then how are we going to learn? How are we going to get better?
Okay, everybody who works with her or for her, remind her of that later.
Oh, they will.
If you'll give it back to her. Thank you very much. So, you nailed some of them right on the bat. And let me ask you this. Are you born with this ability to be creative and innovative? Are you born with it? Turn to your neighbor and real quickly, within 30 seconds, have a discussion. Are you born with it? Okay, so here's what the research shows. The research shows you're not born with creativity and innovation. You can learn it. No matter what the age, you can learn it. Here's the other thing I will tell you. The more learning experiences you enter, the older you get, the healthier your brain becomes. The more learning experiences you put yourself within as you age, the healthier you're going to make your brain. So embrace trying new foods. Embrace trying a new experience. Embrace crossing the border. Embrace doing something you've never done before. And don't do it with a concern of the unknown or fear of failure. Do it with, this is good for my brain. If I want to keep dementia and Alzheimer's at bay, I need to do this. So it's not genetic. It's not passed on from genes. It does have to do with how you're nurtured and the environment that you're in, but it is something that you can learn. Cultures that support individuals and merit challenge status quo. Yesterday, I did a quick experiment with the people in the room. You'll have to ask anybody that was there about naming a piece of furniture, naming a flower, naming a color, and talking about how different we are or how non-different we aren't. 79% of the people in the room all came up with the same answers. It was all the same. It was homogenized. Yet we take great pride in America being different, but we're really not. Because there's great pressure on us to conform and to be like everybody else. I like the ones that stand out. I don't want to be camouflage. I want to be one that stands out and is unique. I want to be different. So it's not something that you're born this way. You can actually learn this and try this. And I've already had you doing it. It all starts with you and your willingness to stick your toe in the water and just give it a try. Here are the 4 behaviors to learn for innovation. Here they come. You've already done a couple of them this morning. The first one is questioning. Questioning everything. Start with that natural curiosity that Marcy was talking about. Embrace that. Passion for inquiry. And how often do you even start with a customer asking them questions and digging deeper underneath, going 5 whys under? Being that curious toddler. Why? 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 But doing it in an adult way that invites them in. Gain understanding and empathy when you do that. If you can become more empathetic with your customers and truly understanding where they're coming from and what their real goals are, they may tell you they want X, when in actuality they want Y. They just know how to articulate X. The more you can do this, the more innovator you can become. What is? What isn't? What if? What caused this to happen? Why did this happen this way? How in the world did we get in America where we are today? It's not as easy black and white answer as we think it is. Why? Why not? Who said this couldn't happen? Who said that a presentation has to be everybody facing the front of the room with a speaker and an expert? Who said that? Who made that rule? Why can't we mine the room for your brilliance that you have and learn from each other? Why not? You're the ones that have the great experiences. Why can't we mine that and share it with each other? Why not shift the whole thing so it's about you and not about me? That's the experience that we should be having. Why can't we shift the whole thing so it truly is about the customer and helping them not only meet their needs, but aspire to be the better person that they need to be tomorrow? Think about that. Helping somebody become better than they are tomorrow. That's really different than just meeting a need. So, what do we need to do to encourage more questioning? In your day-to-day work world, what do you, not your boss, what do you need to do to encourage more questioning? Struggle with that for a minute with each other. Talk to each other about that. So we're going to move on from here because I want to give you the other 3 things that you need to do, and I'm going to let you go. But this one is a tough question because we immediately go to what the bosses want to do or we think they should do instead of what can we do to encourage it. And I think it's a really critical thing. So observing. Number 2 is observing. Traits of great innovators is they observe everything. They're constantly watching. Do you really observe your customers? Are you really observing their day-to-day doings? Are you imagining or asking the questions so that you can be an observer from a distance? Observing. Observe customers and watch for workarounds. Do they work around that process that you put into place? And you so much want to tell them to, no, do it this way. And instead of forcing them to do it the way you want them to do it, why did they do it that other way? Ask them, tell me what motivated you to go this direction. Help me understand what you were thinking. It's a very different question than saying, get back in line. Look for surprises. Customers don't behave as expected. Are you ever surprised by what a customer does? And if you are, ask some questions. There's some insight there to be gleaned. Something that can transform your transactions. Why did they do that? What are they thinking? Observe with all the senses. If you really want to have an impact on your customers, you put something together that enacts 3 senses at one time. The more you can empower 3 senses at one time, the more it becomes an experience that's unique for them. Sight, sound, smell. They'll never forget you. Kind of a running sidebar, I'm known for cologne that I wear. I have one of my vices is a very expensive cologne. And I have friends who will call me and say, I was in New York City walking down the street and I smelled you. And I turned around and went, where are you? Jeff, where are you? And they said, oh, there was this store that was right there. And I walked in and went, this is Jeff. This is what he wears. But it's just interesting, they say, because you always have these unique visuals. You always engage me in doing something active. And you have this very distinct smell, not in a bad way. Just a rhetorical question for you. How can we observe our employees, stakeholders, and constituents more? What can you do? In a situation like this, one of the things I would challenge Marcy to do, and I know she does it, is she watches you. She's watching what you're doing, how you're doing it, when you're doing it, and observing how to help you make this experience better. This evening, she'll be watching many of you. Not in a bad way. Don't worry about that. So networking. This was a very unique finding. This one and one more, I'm done. Networking. Great innovators network with people who are not like them. They don't go for rank, people the same rank that they are. They don't go for people that look like them. They go for people that are exact opposite for them. They search out people that they would never connect with in a normal situation. They network with unique, different people. Linking ideas in areas with ideas of others who play in different sandboxes outside your typical sphere. Your best innovations are going to come from linking things that you think have nothing to do with your work to your work. Go to an art museum. Go look at Picasso and ask yourself, how can I make my experiences like Picasso but not feel fragmented or cubed? But create a unique thing that sticks out in people's minds. Ask yourself those questions. We typically network for resources, for future careers and jobs. We're always looking for a hand up. Innovators weren't looking for that at all. They were looking for a unique experience that they've never had. We like to target people like us, resources, power, authority, and influence. Innovators network for ideas. Ideas. Learning new things and gaining new perspectives. Learning new things and gaining new perspectives. And the last, I'm just going to go through this real quick so I can give you back your time. The last thing innovators do is they experiment. Can you take 10% of what you do in your work and experiment? I like to say 25%. When I'm designing a conference, I make 25% of it be fresh and new, something you've never experienced before. And I do it every year. 25% at the minimum. Let's experiment with this. And tell your customers you're experimenting. They'll play along. They like being parts of experiments, not in a bad way. They'll say, hey, yeah, I'll tell you what worked and what didn't work for me. Just tell them. Be upfront and honest with them. So there's the 4 traits that great innovators have. Idea networks, you just learned what they were. looking for people who are not like you, that are different. But you want to practice questioning, you want to practice experimenting, you want to practice observing, and you want to practice idea networking, or networking with people who are not like you. So the remainder of this conference, I would suggest to you, go a path you weren't planning on going. Find somebody in this room who's not like you and reach out to them. Go connect with them, and just get to know them. You still got time today, through this evening, but I would challenge you to practice this and just learn from them and observe. Thank you very much for your time. You can have the slides. Have a great rest of your conference.